Okay? To find the inverse of this function, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to replace f of x with y. Remember, f of x and y are interchangeable. F of x and y. The second thing that we are going to do is we are going to switch x and y. That's what we're going to do. Switch x and y. Third thing we're going to do is solve our new function, our new equation. We are going to solve for y. And the fourth thing we're going to do is replace y with f inverse of x. Okay? Those are our steps. And you definitely want to have those steps written down.
I'm just curious, if f of x and y are interchangeable, why are we replacing them?
So that we can solve for y. Okay? So you don't want to be solving for f of x. Okay? So that's why, because you're going to solve for y. Okay. So here we go. F of x, I'm going to change that to y. Then I have 5 minus x over 3x plus 2. Okay? I'm going to remove my y, and I'm going to put my x. Then I am going to remove each x and put a y. Now the algebra comes into play. Now what I have to do is I have to solve for y. So, the first thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of this 3y plus 2. I want to get rid of that 3y plus 2. So the way that I get rid of that, think back to 2 equals x over 3. How would I get rid of that 3? Good. I'd multiply both sides by 3. That's how I would get rid of it. So the way I'm going to get rid of my 3y plus 2, or the way I'm going to move it around, is I'm going to multiply both sides by 3y plus 2. Now that is going to be in parentheses. And the reason it's in parentheses is because I'm going to have to distribute that x. I have to distribute that x. Now, this 3y plus 2 and this 3y plus 2 simplify out. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute my x. So I get 3xy plus 2x equals 5 minus y. Now, the number one mistake that I get right here, I see it all the time on tests, is students subtract this 5 and then divide by -1. Okay? They just subtract the 5 and they divide by -1. This should be an x. Is that what you're about to tell me? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It absolutely should be an x. I appreciate that. Okay. They subtract that 5 and they think they've solved for y. The issue with that is, what do I have right here?
A y.
Another y. Okay? So what I've got to do is I've got to get my y's on the same side of the equation. So I've got to use the algebra and subtract to get both y's on the same side and everything else on the other side. Okay? So I've got to get this y, I'm going to add y to both sides. Okay? And then I have 3xy plus y plus 2x equals 5. Now, I need to get this 2x over here. Okay, so I've got 3xy plus y, and this 2x needs to be over. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And of course, I am running out of room, right? So I'm going to go up here. So I have 3xy plus y equals 5 minus 2x. Now, if you chose to write negative 2x plus 5, that's fine. Completely fine. Now, what I do now, this is a GCF. So can I factor that out? Yes. So I'm going to pull that y out. I'm pulling the y out. So I have y on the outside. Then I have 3x plus 1 inside parentheses. So I have 5 minus 2x. How do I get y by itself? Divide both sides. So then I've got y equals 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. Y equals 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. My last step says to replace y with f inverse of x. Okay, and that is a notation showing the inverse. Okay. Now, let's look at this. So that's my final answer. F inverse of x equals 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. So here we go. This is that graph. This is the graph. Okay? Do you see how my graph, they cross each other on this identity function? Okay? Now the red is my original function, and the blue is my inverse function. The red is my my original function. The blue is my inverse. So I'm actually going to rewrite this up here as f of x equals 5 minus x over 3x plus 2, and f inverse of x is 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. Now, do you remember what I told you about the domain and the range? Okay, remember what we said about the domain and the range? I want us to find the domain and the range of f of x and the domain and range of f inverse of x. So, f of x is equal to 5 minus x over 3x plus 2. So if I want to find the domain of f of x, what do I have to focus on? The denominator. Okay? So I'm going to put 3x plus 2 cannot equal 0. When I solve that, I have 3x equals negative 2, and x cannot be negative 2 over 3. Now, the way that I write that in interval notation is negative infinity to negative 2 over 3 union negative 2 over 3 to positive infinity. That is the domain of my original function. If that is the domain of my original function, what is it associated with in my inverse? The range. The range. So I'm going to take this and I am going to write it where it says range. Okay, so I have negative infinity to negative 2 over 3. Union negative 2 over 3 to infinity. Okay? The way that I find the range of my original function is I find the domain for my inverse function. So my inverse function, f inverse of x is 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. That's my inverse function. So I'm going to find the domain of my inverse function. Okay? To find the domain of my inverse function, I put 3x plus 1 equals 0, or can't equal 0. I need to do that a little higher up so we can do it. So 3x plus 1 cannot equal 0. So I have 3x equals negative 1, and then x equals negative 1 over 3. Okay? So the way I write that,
Wait, does it equal or does
it does not equal. You're correct. My x value cannot be negative 1/3, so that's what I'm excluding. So I've got negative infinity to negative 1/3 and negative 1/3 to infinity. And if that is the domain of my inverse function, it is my range for my original function. Okay. So that is my domain and range. So we're going to take one more peek at the graph. Okay? So back here at my graph, what we are saying here, my original function, which is 5 minus x over 3x plus 2, that is a function, and more specifically, it is a one-to-one function. Because it's a one-to-one function, that means its inverse is a function. So our inverse is 5 minus 2x over 3x plus 1. And here are the graphs of both of those.